The Survival Logbook, a logbook that was launched on December 26th, 2017 and contains several questions and quizzes such as would you rather questions and more. But there are also 3 other mysteries / questions that have not been as easily answered than the others, and these are the Survival Logbook tallies, the word search, and the Foxy Grid. Let's go through each mystery and answer them in as much detail as we can. Before I begin to present the solutions, I would first like to inform you that the way I have chosen to read the mysteries will reflect the way people probably would have solved the puzzles at the time the book was published. To add, I will not mention any clues that have emerged between the time that the book was released until now, but will present the facts or clues to the solutions we had at that time. So all in all, this video is going to replicate an example of what a video from 2017 would have looked like on how to solve this difficult puzzle. The tally marks are found on several pages throughout the book. Page 9 shows 5, page 19 shows 2 5s, page 31 with 2 5s and a 4, page 36 with a 5, and page 100 with another 5. If you add up the numbers, you get 39. Since almost all of the numbers are marked as 5 except for the one that has a 4 on it, you get the value 39 instead of the more common 40, which means that 39 looks very odd on purpose. Usually when using counting marks, you count up to a certain value that you don't know what it first is, that is, an unknown value. So when you count every mark, except the last one, you will land on 5. In this case, counts down until he reaches 39, which gives the last tally the number 4, and thus the end of the whole count. It would also be considered a little strange to count to 2 on one tally mark and then continue on a new tally mark with 5 again. Why not continue on 5 as usual? But why the number 39? Well, if you look up the number 39, you'll see that page 32 is called 39, which is wrong, which means you'll discover a bigger mystery where the multiple pages are labeled with the wrong page numbers. To strengthen this solution, you use these tallies to tally up to a certain value, so by adding them up to 39 leads us to the next mystery. On page 58, there is a word search where you have to search for all the words you can find, from Afton Robotics, Chica, Party, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Let's Eat, Pizza, Laugh, Fun, Cake, Guard, and Play. There are also more words that can be found in the word search that are not included in the given list. These are Who are you? What is your name? In the book there is a faded gray text entitled My Name, the page of which contains prominent number from the number of pages considered to be marked and important. The My Name reference is found on pages like 29, labeled as page 52, page 32, labeled as page 39, page 43, labeled as page 15, page 47, where the numbers in the Hope row section 4 and 5 has been changed with 7 and 2, page 79, where a red text says for real value, see page 61. If you turn to page 61, you'll see a whiteboard with the written numbers 5 plus 4 and 3 lone in the corner. Page 85 shows a row of rules for safety where row 10 and 11 has been marked in red. Page 108, you can see the last report that is marked in at the time of 8/11. Since these numbers are linked to the My Name references, they're suspected of being linked to the word search. If you insert all the numbers from each page as coordinates in the word search, you get a letter. The order in which the numbers are chosen is the order in which they appear chronologically throughout the book, that is, the order of the pages. If you convert the numbers to coordinates in the word search, you'll eventually get a name. 52 means 5 across 2 down, that gives a C. 39, 3 across 9 down gives an A. 15, 1 across 5 down gives an S. 72, 7 across 2 down gives an S. 5 plus 4 and 3, which is 9 across 3 down, gives an I. 10, 11, 10 across 11 down gives a D. And lastly 8, 11, which is 8 across 11 down, that gives a Y. Spelling the name Cassidy. But whose name is this? Well, the book was released on December 26th, 2017, which was 3 weeks and 1 day after the latest game, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. At the end of the game, you get a cutscene of all the missing children's gravestones after they reach the afterlife. All but 2 of the 7 children have a given name. The positions of these gravestones match perfectly with the position of the heads of the animatronics in the final cutscene of FNaF 3, the game that takes place right before the Pizzeria Simulator. Even Chica, the only girl animatronic, third in line and further back than the other heads, matches perfectly with Susie's gravestone, also one of the few girls among the missing children, and also number 3 in the row and farthest back among all the other gravestones. Therefore, it is easy to conclude that these names presented are the names of the children who haunt the FNaF animatronics. Gabriel possesses Freddy Fazbear, Jeremy possesses Bonnie the Bunny, Susie with Chica the Chicken, and Fritz with Foxy the Pirate Fox. There are 2 more gravestones where the names are hidden. One of the gravestones sits at the back of the others, alone on a hill. The conclusion is that this gravestone belongs to the child who haunts the puppet, the one who oversees all the other dead children and the reason they haunted the dolls in the first place. The name of the puppet is presumably Charlie, a name we can find in the novel Therefor I, who is herself the daughter of Henry, the exact parallel of the game lore's daughter we see to the game's Henry, which is yet another situation where the characters are mentioned in different universes, like what we see with William Afton as Mr. Afton in Sister Location. The 5th gravestone is the last in the main row of gravestones and is also hidden, which may be the gravestone we see later in the Survival Logbook. Actually, the same grave has the My Name reference. Hence, this gravestone is the grave of the 5th missing child haunting the 5th animatronic, Golden Freddy or Fredbear. To reinforce this solution, the name Cassidy appears in the novel Therefor I, just as the name Charlie does, and is specifically looped in with the missing children. The name Cassidy actually means curly-haired, which might explain the scene from the logbook where the puppet is giving a birthday cake to a black-haired girl. While she isn't quite curly-haired, this scene, however, looks a lot like the Happiest Day minigame from FNaF 3, where again, the puppet is giving a birthday cake to the 5th missing kid, Cassidy. The Foxy Grid is a grid on page 95 where you have to draw an 8-bit character in a limited area with a certain amount of cells. In the first 3 cells, in the upper left hand corner, there is a letter on each cell. From cell 1 to 3 is marked in faded letters with A, B and C. Therefore, it seems that the remaining cells should be replenished with letters in alphabetical order. As soon as the alphabet runs out and there are no letters left in the English alphabet, you start over and keep filling in until you reach line 10 of the grid. Why should you stop at row 10 and not fill the entire grid? Well, because the numbers marking the rows fade out row by row after 10, and the whole thing looks like it's over, even though the rows of cells actually continue. So what are all the cells with letters filled in supposed to mean? Well, to take a step back, on some pages of the book, there are questions posed in a faded grey text, presumably by some spirit of the missing children. The pages of each question asked are as follows. What do you remember? Was your favorite childhood toy a plastic purple telephone? Do you remember your name? Do you have dreams? Do any of these toys look familiar to you? Do any of these belong to you? Was your favorite ride a carousel? What do you see? Do you miss them? Does it still talk to you? Is this song familiar to you? The party was for you. Now, who's asking these questions? Just like the My Name references to get Cassidy's name, all of these questions are asked in grey faded text, which means the questions are probably being asked by Cassidy, and it would be strange if all these questions were asked to herself and not to someone else. But to who? Some of these questions gives us clues as to who Cassidy is talking to. Page 23, with the purple phone reference, can be linked directly to the purple phone in FNaF 4's bedroom. The question on page 41 can be linked to Mike from FNaF 4 as the crying child, who is constantly having nightmares about the FNaF 4 animatronics. The question on page 56 about the carousel could possibly be linked to Mike, as he most likely spent his time at Freddy's restaurant. Page 70's question may be related to Mike's long-lost friends, who abandoned him at the end of FNaF 4's minigame. Page 75's question can also be linked to Mike, who constantly hears Fredbear plushie talking to him through every minigame in FNaF 4. Lastly, the question on page 103 can be strongly linked to Mike, as the party was for him, the party that caused him to lose half of his head. While there are some questions that align with Mike as the protagonist of FNaF 4, there are some questions that don't really connect with him. Page 20's question can be connected to anyone, and the first one you can think of is Mike, whose memories are presented in the FNaF 4 minigame. Page 31's question is somewhat odd to match Mike, as he clearly remembers his name, as we can see from the sister location game cutscene after passing the Golden Freddy mode custom night.
Father, it's me, Michael.
And also in the beginning of the logbook, writing his own name. This could be a question asked before he gets his name and asked before the game sister location. But to counter that explanation, we actually know that this logbook takes place afterwards, around the later times of FNaF 3 and 6. The timing of the logbook is most likely around our time, 30 years after FNaF 1. Interestingly, if we follow Mike's guidance on page 79, we can take the chalkboard numbers 5 plus 4 times 3 to get 27, the real value of $16 into our modern times value, 27. It is however 2017's value and not 2023's, but honestly, Scott can't predict whatever value there is in the future. So therefore, the book takes place long after the 1980s. The question from page 31 could however be that Cassidy does not know that Mike has come up with his name yet, and that she asks him with in mind how he lost his memories after the bite of 83. Well, this explanation however can be seen as a bit shaky. The question on page 42 and 43 is a bit unclear, as some of the toys don't look familiar to Mike's toys from FNaF 4, but who knows. The question on page 59 seems to be completely unclear at the moment, and it's difficult to relate to Mike. And the question on page 83 is a bit vague, since you don't know what song Cassidy is referring to. In short, only half of all the questions are correct with Mike, and almost exclusively via FNaF 4 references. Of course, all of these questions would be true if we only knew more about Mike's character, but if they're asked to Mike, you might think he should answer the questions, right? But does he really answer them? Well, it can also be straight up and not by him writing it down, but we know that Mike talks in the book through the red ink text. This is made clear at the beginning of the book. The book was previously owned by Mike, who wrote his name in red ink text. The pages on which the red text or illustrations can be seen are page 1, Survival, where the name Safety is crossed out, Mike, which is crossed out, Employees get free pizzas, the tally 5, Not funny, haha, 3 red hearts on page 16, the tallies 5 and 5. There are illustrations of 2 people on water skis with the arrows free trip, prize money, water ski and speedboat, and another arrow with the faded grey text my name, Clara from the Immortal and the Restless, because everything about this place is crazy and no one seems to notice except me, certain death, with a line crossing over new difficulties, and also the tallies of 5, 4 and 5. A red gravestone bearing the faded text my name, the reference we went through earlier. Casual bongos with the illustration of the same thing. Survival, where success is crossed out and the tally 5. Run 5 miles, run even faster, take a self-defense class. Animatronics, where safety is crossed out. An illustration of Nightmare Fredbear, chewing gum excessively. Illustration with the name of Freddy's logo with the text Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. An illustration of a superhero destroying Freddy with laser eyes with the text Power. My name and for real value, see page 61. Illustration of Freddy and the gang as ghosts. Red Rose 1011, for the glory of pizza. An illustration of a basket of money with the text this, and another picture of a basket of exotic butters is labeled with the text not this. He tripped and fell on Freddy's teeth, not our fault. Tally 5. An illustration of the same superhero from page 73 is locking up Freddy, the time 811. Many of these texts and illustrations fit Mike's personality, as well as revealing the new things about his personality that we did not know before. But as I mentioned earlier, Mike doesn't answer any questions from Cassidy at all, which is kind of weird considering she's asking him about 12 questions and he's writing in almost every page of the book. However, there's actually a third and final spirit that talks through the logbook and who actually responds to Cassidy's questions. Only 4 of these questions gets answered in nights 4 and 5's feelings about tonight's shift. In the segments of these chapters, you're asked to call in the emotion you experienced during the course of the night and can rank your emotion on a scale from 1 to 10. If you compare the emotions you have to choose from between the same segments of every chapter, some emotions are exchanged for what appears to be answers to the questions posed by Cassidy. The answer that appears on the following pages from top to bottom are as follows. Page 89. Emotions, health, and existential dread are replaced with I can hear sounds and it was from me. Page 109's fulfillment and purpose are replaced with I can't see and I'm scared. But who is this third voice that speaks in the last two segments of feelings about tonight's shift? Well, from the other questions, we already know that the questions are directly to a character from FNAF 4, and if it's not Mike, who we obviously only see writes in red ink text and who does not answer, this must be no other than the Foxy brother from FNAF 4. But here's the tricky thing about Mike and Foxy Bro. We've all thought that Mike is the crying child from FNAF 4 and that his big brother is the Foxy Bro. But if you look at the logbook, we see that on each first page of chapters 2 to 5, the character Foxy wears a security guard badge as well as a flashlight and is constantly in FNAF 3's office. Suspiciously close to Mike, also being a security guard in FNAF 3 and who probably as a security guard wears a badge and a flashlight. Maybe you didn't think that my argument about Security Foxy representing Mike as the Foxy Bro was strong enough. I know, there's a page of Freddy and Bonnie who also wear badges like security guards, even though they don't show up as often as Security Foxy does. But to add to the fact that there are 3 children to William and not 2, is that in FNAF 6 you can see some pictures in the alleyway. One of the posters is an illustration of what appears to be some kind of family photograph. The father, probably William, with his puppet Michael, who is a copy of his father.
They thought I was you.
Then there's a clown who will presumably be representing Circus Baby, and therefore William's daughter Elizabeth. Last in the picture is Fredbear, who is strongly associated with the crying child, the child whose best friend to death is Fredbear. This is not only a representation of the Afton family, but also a way of showing that the family consists of 3 children and not 2, and that Mike and crying child are separate characters, brothers. I know that this doesn't necessarily support Mike being the Foxy Bro all in all, they could also be separate as well. But if you turn to the first page of Night 1, we once again see Foxy, this time without his badges and flashlight, but instead he reads a newspaper that is titled Screws, Bolts and Hairpins, a direct reference to Sis Location, a game we know for a fact Michael appears in.
To the first day of your exciting new career. Whether you were approached at a job fair, read our ad in Screws, Bolts and Hairpins,
Thus, it still feels intentional that Mike is the Foxy Bro and that he is separate from the crying child. And why doesn't Security Foxy wear his flashlight and badge? Well, that is because we are only on the literal first page on the first chapter. We haven't started our job yet. But another tricky thing in this image, how does Mike know about the nightmares if he's not the player in FNAF 4? Well, he's the older brother and lives in the same house. That doesn't mean that crying child is the only one experiencing the nightmares. It could be the other ones at the family as well. This lead might actually hold up if the nightmares are created from William's underground bunker from Sis Location. But if the nightmares are literal nightmares, then it might be Michael's nightmares. Nightmares created from his guilt on killing his brother. So either way, this holds up and the two are separate characters. This, coupled with Mike writing in red ink text, the color associated with Foxy means that Mike is the Foxy Bro and that the crying child is someone else. In this case, the third last spirit speaking in black alter text must be the bite victim from FNAF 4, a whole separate character from Foxy Bro / Mike, Mike's little brother. Some of the responses like I can't see and I'm scared are almost entirely connected to the bite victim, as he can't see since he gets bitten on the forehead and is afraid every time. It would also be odd if Cassidy only asks Mike about FNAF 4 references and not references from other games like Sister Location, a game we know for sure Mike participated in. This may be seen as a controversial part of the soul, but it's also a big deal, especially with the facts I just presented. We therefore now have the identities of all the talking spirits in the book. It also seems more logical that the victim died from a complete bite from Fredbear and that he, along with Cassidy, haunts the same animatronic Golden Freddy, rather than being put back together to become Michael Afton. And about the thing with both Cassidy and bite victim's possession in the same animatronic might actually explain why they can talk to each other more easily and in some cases know each other's pasts. Well, one question from Cassidy that remains unanswered is on page 31, a question that could be a clue to finding the actual name of the bite victim as well. The 4 questions to be answered are as follows. The answers are arranged in the order in which the bite victim answers from Night 4 and 5's feelings about tonight's shift. Page 75's Does he still talk to you is responded with I can hear sounds. Page 103, The party was for you, is responded with It was for me. Page 59's What do you see is answered with I can't see. And page 41's Do you have dreams is answered with I'm scared. The first answer works technically, whereas the last answer to the question on page 41 is the trickiest. However, an illustration by Mike depicting the Nightmare Fredbear may lead to the victim's non-direct answer, "I'm scared." If you look at all the other questions and try to pair them with the answers, you see that by the process of elimination, question 41 must be the correct and most probable answer. It can be odd for only 4 of the 12 questions to matter, but we only have 4 responses. There are some questions that also line up with the responses from Bite Victim, but if Cassidy is asking the Bite Victim, we need to pair the answers with questions that are directly linked to Crying Child. For example, I Can Hear Sounds has 2 linking questions. Does it still talk to you? And is this song familiar to you? Is this song familiar to you seems completely unrelated to FNaF 4, and therefore this question, like other questions that the Bite Victim don't recognize, don't get responded. Instead, Does It Still Talk to You with the Fredbear plush that BB carries around is recognized by him and therefore answered. The same thing goes with the final question, Do You Have Dreams, with the Nightmare Fredbear below it. The 8 other questions might just be misdirections because otherwise this puzzle would be much easier to solve. Of course, it may feel strange to make Mike's illustration on Fredbear the reason for the question getting responded in a non-direct answer, "I'm scared," but if you look at this, it is not the first time that Mike has intervened so that we can solve these puzzles. As mentioned earlier, the name Cassidy was derived from numbers like 811 and 1011, marked with red text. We also got the numbers 5 plus 4 and 3 with the help of a hint from Mike on page 79. For real value, see page 61. So basically, Mike is helping both Cassidy and the Bite Victim to remember their names. Now that we know all 4 questions for all 4 answers, we need to get a name out. But how? Well, the way we got Cassidy out was by inserting coordinates into the word search. And there's also another grid where we're asked, presumably by Cassidy, to type letters into each cell, as the first 3 cells are marked in the faded letters ABC. But where do we get the coordinates? Well, via the page numbers where Cassidy's questions come from, more specifically the page numbers of the questions answered by the Bite Victim. The page numbers are the only prominent numbers we can find from the pages with the matching questions, and that is why we use them in the Foxy Grid. The order in which these numbers appears is again from the order in which the questions are answered by the Crying Child. So if you insert the numbers we've been given as coordinates into the grid, you get the letters, well, by starting off, page 75, 7 across 5 down gives an E, page 103, 10 across 3 down gives a V, page 59, 5 across 9 down gives an A, and lastly, page 41, 4 across 1 down gives a D. Evad, which is obviously not a name. But before we wrap this up, it's worth thinking about how many references there are in the logbook about taking a moment to self-reflect, and the pages this self-reflection hint comes from are as follows. Page 3's, after each night work, we ask you to take a moment for self-reflection by completing the various activities in the following pages. Page 23's, reflect on the things your life for which you are most grateful for, reflect on the happiest day of your life, and page 40's, reflect on the meaning of your dreams. Even if these references for some reason don't seem to say anything to you, there is even a mirror on page 59, actually the page next to the word search, which is on page 58. And what happens if you put Evad into the mirror? Well, it reflects backwards to Dave, the actual name of the Crying Child. Since the mirror is next to the word search, the puzzle that gave Cassidy's name, it becomes somewhat symbolic in some way to get the other child's name on the next page, pages that are in the middle of the logbook. Although if we are using the page numbers as coordinates, there's a lots of space left in the Foxy Grid. But think of it, we are using page numbers, and the X coordinates, which is the number of the tens, goes up to page 110, that is 11 across on the grid, and the Y coordinate, that is the 1Ts that goes to 9 on the pages, is 9 down on the grid. So if we change the border to row 9 and column 11, we see that all the letters matches perfectly with the given space of the page numbers. But why should we get Dave's name in the Foxy Grid and Cassidy's name in the word search? Why not the other way? Well, if Bite Victim, who is talking in alter text, is asking Cassidy for her name in the word search, it makes sense for her to respond on the same page. Same goes for the Foxy Grid. Cassidy is asking us to fill in the boxes with letters, and by doing so, will lead us to get the name of the person she is talking to, Dave the Crying Child. Even if you test and insert Cassidy's numbers into the grid and Dave's into the word search, you don't get the same answer, or not a name, and that's why these methods I've presented are the only ones that work in only one way. As mentioned at the beginning, the tallies had 7 5s and a 4. This could mean that the 7 5s represent the 5th missing child, Cassidy, whose name is 7 letters long, and that the one with 4 marks instead of 5 represents Dave's name, which is 4 letters long. Like Cassidy's name, Dave also appears earlier in the same novel, The Silverize, and is William Afton's pseudonym Dave Miller. This may be a strong clue that William chose his dead son's name because it was likely his death that started William Afton's madness, and that the reason he killed children to recreate his son. I will put you back together. Dave or David was also a popular name in the US in the 70s, which must have been when the crying child was born. More specifically, in the city where FNaF is based on, Hurricane, Utah, in Britain, where the Afton family originated, the name David also comes 2nd to 3rd in place. Interestingly, the name Michael also ranked in both the United States and the United Kingdom. On the other hand, Elizabeth's name is 20th in the US and in the UK, which may not be quite as high but still relatively good. Even William's name was in the top names in both the US and the UK in the 40s, which is around the time William would have been born, a generation before his own children were born. Even the name David can be translated in Hebrew to beloved, which describes David's character and that he is deeply beloved by his father William. This can be reinforced with the Dave Miller reference mentioned earlier. Even the name Michael is translated in Hebrew as "who is like God," which is a rhetorical question, and of course no one is like God. But this suits Michael, who is very much like his father.
They thought I was you.
The God of this world who can create life with remnant. Elizabeth is also translated in Hebrew to God's promise, which describes how Elizabeth promises to make her father proud, and this we can see in the last cutscene in the Pizzeria simulator.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
The name William is of Germanic origin and means strong-willed warrior or resolute protector, which is connected to how William has an iron will to live.
I always come back.
And how he tries to protect his child Elizabeth from Circus Baby. In short, we have all 3 names of the Afton children, all of whom are of Hebrew origin and all of whom are connected in one way or another to their wicked father William. And there's also another thing that I wanted to point out, and that is there's actually a hidden conversation in the book by David and Cassidy talking to each other about their names. Who are you? What is your name? My name, Cassidy. Do you remember your name? Dave. All in all, I believe that the tally marks that make up the 39 is a hint to the mystery of having the name of the 5th missing child, whose mystery is found on page 32, marked with the wrong number 39. And number 2 with the numbers 52, 39, 15, 72, 5 plus 4, 3, 10, 11, and 8, 11 are the coordinates of the word search that gives us the name Cassidy for the 5th missing child that possesses Golden Freddy. And on the page numbers of the questions answered by the bite victim, which is 75, 103, 59, and 41, are the coordinates of the Foxy Grid that gives us, with a little reflection hint, the name Dave or David to the crying child who also possesses Golden Freddy. Anyways, this is how to solve the Survival Logbook that completes the last lore bits of the Five Nights at Freddy's story. Like I said in the beginning, I did not mention the other Daves from the franchise, except Dave Miller of course, since these characters come from stories that are published after the logbook. But despite these later clues, we can still see all this as the intended solutions to the logbook. Anyways, don't forget to share this video, like it, and if not even better, subscribe. And that's it for me. Thanks for listening.